Welcome to Exploring Digital with Purr, a podcast for entrepreneurs and CEOs who want their businesses to benefit from a digital-first approach.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Exploring Digital with Purr. I'm joined today by James Cash from the train station. Hi, James.
Hello.
Do you want to just explain a little bit about what the train station is and does to kick us off?
Yeah, certainly. It's the brainchild of myself and my partner, Jim Stubbs. We had a mobile personal training business for many a year and looked at ways that we could expand that, knowing that we were limited to the amount of hours in the day and clients that we could see in that time. So we wanted to make the next step. At that particular time, we felt that the gym and PT experience was missing something, and probably a hybrid of having a facility and the services that we offered, but hitting a market that weren't necessarily interested in one-to-one, but also didn't like your bog standard kind of class offerings that were out there through your big box Globo gyms. So we set about looking at structuring a class format around the PT sessions that we do. So small groups, I mean, group training nowadays is very popular, but at the time that we were looking into it 8 years ago, there were only really a handful of people doing what we were looking at doing, and certainly none in our area. So yeah, the concept of, in essence, sharing a PT session with a group of other people. So everybody that is a trainer at the train station is at least the minimum level 3 qualification of a trainer. Some are much more experienced, different qualifications, etc. But we wanted everybody in the group class to have what we call the touch. So a little bit of PT per session, not as specific or as targeted as a one-to-one, obviously, but as well as sharing the attention of the trainer, you're sharing the cost of that particular session. So in essence, using what is now a commonplace fee for a trainer, but setting that as a membership fee across a month. So we started off with about, I think, 14 offerings a week when we opened obviously pre-lockdown, but about 60 classes now, ranging from Pilates to yoga to heavy weights sessions that we call Atlas, to hybrid, which is a combination of cardio and resistance, and the all too famous HIIT, as it is now, with everyone doing it through every kind of online medium.
Absolutely. So I guess there's a couple of interesting challenges there as a business when not only having to present yourself in this new way. It's not about the gym, it's about the trainers and about the delivery of those classes. And I know we worked together on a web and video project a number of years ago, and it was so much the focus of everything you were doing to market the company was not here's the space of the gym. I find that's incidental to the fact that we've got these great people. And I guess a bit like us, where we're trying to ensure that, well, as part of our model, we try and ensure that the coders that we've got are as client-facing as they can be, that they're able to have a conversation with people. When you're hiring or trying to build a team, you need to be confident that the people you're putting in the gym are going to be representative of that way of doing things, and they've got to have enough of a personality themselves that you can market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the main things that I do, which may sound a bit odd, but as soon as we have someone come through the door and present themselves for a position that we've got available, I request a CV, because what I want to find out from that CV is not about their qualifications. They're coming to work in a gym. I'm assuming that they've got the right qualifications. Naturally, we check on that, but of course, the biggest thing for me that actually gets forgotten quite a lot is that we are personal trainers. So that's not somebody that's just chucking out exercise. That's someone that's working with a person. And I think that a walking textbook that's got hundreds and hundreds of qualifications, that's only interested in one or two things, has an audience, has a skill. Is it the right skill for me and my client base and my membership? Probably not. The demographic that we have, all relatively hardworking, busy individuals for obvious reasons. I need to know that person, when they come in as a client and is looked after by this trainer that sat opposite me, is not only going to get a very good and effective workout, but it's not going to be as taxing as it may seem. The number one question that I always get asked is, what's the best exercise for X? What's the best exercise for Y? Blah, blah, blah. And my answer is always the same. It's whatever exercise you enjoy doing. Because if you enjoy doing it, you'll do it. And having a trainer stood by you is a tool to help you through those exercises that you don't necessarily enjoy, but that they'll be there to motivate you for and ease you into along to the next exercise, which, is again taxing, but because you like it, you like coming to see the trainer because of the way that they make you feel when you've had your session and you leave the gym. So somebody that has, an amazing CV is brilliant, and that's very interesting. But what else do they have? What other interests? What is their personality that will make them a personal trainer to that client? And that's absolutely key for me, is the relationship that you can have between a trainer and a client, that it's as effective as the session that we hope to deliver.
So do you feel then that, right, fine, yes, you're in a sector that was badly hit and one of the very first to be hit by a lockdown, but that within that space, yes, you are a gym owner with physical premises, that you were actually quite well positioned to be able to ride this out and to transition into online delivery and to pivot in that way?
Yeah, I mean, online training and you trainers with YouTube channels, etc., etc. That's not brand new. That's obviously been around for a long time. You've only got to look at the sort of the big YouTube stars that have made a career from not actually being stood next to or in front of clients to know that that's been going on. Interesting, you say that we were one of the first businesses to be hit. I actually look at it almost the other way around. That I thought that we were one of the last businesses to close. We certainly had a period of time where people kept coming in and saying, "Oh, are you going to close? Oh, I'm so glad you're still open. Do you know when you might close?" And my answer was very clear, and I did this both through emails. I recorded a few videos, used various social medias, and also announcements on the gym floor that we would stay open as long as we could. We wanted to provide a service to our community and our membership. And what was absolutely paramount for us, and it became more clear as the time went on, was that we moved slightly from physical benefits to mental benefits. And literally, people were walking across the threshold of the gym in that final week before March the 20th, saying, "Oh, you've got no idea what this does for my sanity. Thank you. It's, thank you for staying open and giving me my slice of exercise and relief that you provide." But obviously, the fact that we closed on the 20th of March was not a shock. We knew it was coming. We just didn't have any kind of definitive idea of when that would be. And the announcement was made on that 5 o'clock briefing on March the 25th. But because we were sort of semi-prepped for its arrival, we'd already tried out Zoom. We'd already ironed out a few creases that we could see that were potentially issues for us. We'd looked at what space you'd need for a training session, whether that be one-to-one or as a class. We looked at how we would change our booking system to accommodate for what would be a very different approach to the sort of training that we do. And from that announcement on Friday at 5 o'clock, by midday the following Monday, we had our timetable up, running, live, all the sessions covered by trainers. The trainers had to rejig their diaries, and we are servicing between 50 and 80 members a day through our timetable.
So the number of sessions you're offering hasn't really dropped significantly through this transition, or?
Yeah, no, it's definitely dropped. I mean, so principally, what you've got to look at when you're putting the timetables together with your demographic is who trains when. What time restraints people have. So let's cut to pre-lockdown. People were obviously going to work. They had a variety of different jobs and transport to get to work. So a typical office job, for example, for argument's sake, and let's loosely use 9 to 5. We had people coming first thing in the morning. So our 6 or 6:30 sessions were very popular for the workers that had to leave us and go off to the office, and then typically there was another flood, what we call mid-morning, which was the post-school drop-off, where again we'd have another wave of 20 people per class coming through, and then again it would quiet off latter morning, and then again pick up at lunchtime, and then again kick off in the evening with the post-office workers coming to the gym at night. Well, two massive things happened there. Number one, we weren't limited to attendees per session because this was going out into their homes. And point B, which is probably the bigger one, we didn't have the normal working timetable to adhere to. Yes, some of our key workers are still having to go into work, and we've got quite a few doctors and frontline workers that train with us. So we have kept some early morning sessions on, but not every day, like we've principally had before, historically Monday to Friday with those early pre-work sessions. I think we had 3 lunchtime offerings before lockdown. Now every day we've got a midday class. And again, because the restraints of working in an office and getting from the office to the gym are less prevalent at the moment, we've got 1 session in the evening as opposed to 2 or 3. So the timetable has come down because the restrictions of work life were also removed. So we were able to offer a bigger occupancy of session on actually a slightly smaller timetable because the restrictions were relieved.
So you get the benefit of people not spending time on the tube, but then the adverse effect of homeschooling and trying to share responsibilities amongst families and so on. So yeah, it makes everything a bit more unpredictable, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm not quite sure what you can see, but this is my dining room, come office, come classroom at the moment. So that's my son's work that we have been set today, that he's sort of in the middle of, / on lunch, / playing with Lego probably. And I think
just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. But also that I think that's a key thing to the changes of everybody at the moment. This is an atypical situation. People are now working. I've got in essence my office set up in front of me now, which I wouldn't have here at all. No. The sort of classroom stuff that's behind me would obviously be in the classroom, and this would just be our dining room. Everybody's had to make that change. My team of trainers are absolutely fantastic. They've absolutely jumped on this. I think there was a bit of nerves at first in terms of, well, I'm used to doing a session on a big gym floor with lots of kit, and now it's just going to be me. Everyone's going to be looking at me for guidance through their session, and I'm going to be in my kitchen. And I'm going to be inviting 25, 30 people into my front room, kitchen, backyard, whatever it may be. So there was, once they sort of had a little bit of a 5-minute blip of getting their head around that, they've been magnificent all the way through. And that's not just me saying this about my team, who obviously I would be biased about. This is feedback that I'm getting from all of our members that are still with us, congratulating us on what we've done and thanking us for providing this service all the way through the channels that we are.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really impressive to hear. So now that we're potentially getting to a stage where we might hear this week about some changes in how lockdown works, or people, constraints being relaxed slightly, have you got much of a roadmap in place, I guess, for how you ease back into business as it was? Or is there a plan to not go back to how it was? Is it more a case of some sort of hybrid model to start with? And is there a critical mass of sort of memberships restarting to be able to go back into a physical location?
Yeah, it's very interesting that you use that word hybrid, because that's actually one of our sessions that we use, and I think hybrid can be used for so many different things, and that's pretty much how we described it the other day, actually. interestingly, that we've thought about doing what everybody is doing now. Every gym has had to go online because they want to offer their membership something. We've thought about this for a long time, and there's always been something that's more important to do or more pressing or X, Y, Z. But of course, as soon as that's your only option, funny how you pull your finger out and get on with it.
Right.
But it's worked very well naturally. Like, as I'm sure many gyms have found, we've had people that have had to leave us. They're freelancers, they're contractors, they've been furloughed, and the way that their furloughs worked hasn't given them as much income, etc., etc. We've got we've got a fantastic membership base all across the board, and people have had to leave, and that's absolutely fine. We welcome them back as soon as we can. That doesn't necessarily mean that as soon as the doors open, they'll come back, because although our world may have been slightly realigned, theirs may not have been. But I'm making sure that I'm keeping in touch with everybody who's coming through our doors. And a lot of questions that we're getting are, well, do you know when lockdown is going to end? Is there some sort of like exercise industry brief that's going out that we're not being told about? Absolutely not. But when we do open, is it still something that we're going to be offering in terms of the streaming? And I think that there's many sorts of answers to this. The principal answer is yes, we will. And I think the reason that we will is because we will have to. As soon as we open the doors, that's us confident about what we can deliver with whatever guidelines that we get. And we can only work off the information that we've got at the moment, which is thus far 2-meter social distancing. So we've got to think about doing a class with space. Now, that's great, then we can do that. That's not a problem. But is everybody going to be happy coming back into an environment where they have to rely on everybody, like a puzzle, moving around and respecting that distance? So some of our members may wish to stay on working at home as opposed to risk that environment. And I think this week there's going to be all sorts of information come out about social distancing, about groups of family, groups of friends that you can mix with, how many people a day from different families, blah, 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 blah. And I think people have got, first of all, people didn't realize how effective what we do over a screen, over a Zoom link, how effective that can be. And it's incredibly effective. Once you've got your head around the fact that you aren't in the gym, you aren't in that building on the gym floor with the kit that we've got, you get to understand, oh, right, these guys, they really know what they're doing, because here I am with no kit and I'm still feeling absolutely beasted after
But it reinforces that your model is what makes it special. It's the person, not the equipment or the facility. It's the experience.
It is the experience, and that's a great word to use, and that's one that I use a lot. And that comes from our origins as personal trainers. I mean, when I started, I literally had a very small backpack which had a skipping rope, boxing gloves, and some pads in it. And I'd cycle all over London to my clients. I'd meet them at offices, parks, commons, their houses, etc., etc. And yes, some of my clients had kit, some of my clients had full gym setups, etc., etc. But meeting somebody in their lunch hour in Green Park to train them for their PT session, you're not going to be bringing barbells and all sorts of rack kit with you. You've got to think on your feet. And because we had that understanding of how we could deliver as effective a session as possible with very limited kit around us and equipment, we just come straight back into that. And that's something that is part of our interview process is, okay, right, design a session, go nuts, use anything you want on the gym floor. Okay, great. Okay, option 2, you've only got this bit of kit. Okay, great. Option 3, you've got no kit. Option 4, you've just got this size mat. It's a huge, busy gym floor. You can only exercise your client in that space. and just throwing different scenarios at them. Well, of course, the scenario that we've been given, no one was prepared for. No one was prepared for this kind of global pandemic. But come back to the roots of how you can exercise just by using body weight or applying a little bit of resistance in the funkiest of ways. Then all of a sudden, people are like, I had no idea that I could do that and get as much of a sweat on as I am. So once people sort of appreciated that, oh, I can still get what I want from my workout through a screen, they've come round to it full bore. It's been absolutely brilliant. The uptake on it has been excellent. In fact, I've actually had a few people join since lockdown because their friends have said, well, my gym's still open, they're still offering these sessions and they're so effective, I've carried on. So that was very surprising in all honesty. I didn't think we'd be gaining members in this time.
So do you think that's potentially going to break down some of the barriers that people had if they're going to join a gym, just physically finding the time to travel somewhere, or I don't have time to organise my kit, or what the night before, whatever it is. Somehow now there's less of an excuse because you can do it without leaving your sitting room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think some people might be annoyed at that the excuses are getting smaller and smaller. But absolutely, I think, I mean, it's different in London, which is obviously where our gym is. There's gyms everywhere. So generally speaking, I'd argue that every address in London is not far away from some kind of gym. Now, whether that's the gym that you want to use or not is a different story.
Yeah.
But I'd say that inside of London, it's slightly different. Outside of London, which sort of comes back to our previous point, interestingly, obviously working with the trainer is very location specific. Had been up until recently, and as soon as a client moves out of the area, whether that be still in London, but out of the area, that's your relationship over, because the travel to the gym becomes an unnecessary spend of time. Ironically, what's happened since lockdown and since people have found out what we're doing is we've actually got clients back, because they've come to us and said, well, listen, if you're doing everything through an online format, then I can just join in with that, can't I? And you're like, well, yes, obviously, of course you can. So we've had clients come back that have been in Oxford, the Isle of Wight, Cornwall. I've got a couple of clients come back in Manchester.
As well. Longer term, I guess there's also potential that maybe it makes it people less likely to join a chain of gyms, but stick with an independent, because it's not as crucial that you've got one nearby you if you're traveling around, because you can still dial into your original plan.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're talking about the relationship we have with the trainer being location specific, what this lockdown has proved, because everyone's jumped on the online train, is that you don't need to be location specific. Our client that we,
I think the other constraint, you've got location, but often time and scheduling was the other point you made earlier. Now, are you recording classes when they occur, and is it possible to catch up effectively on one that took place earlier in the day as well?
Interestingly, so the answer to that is no. We haven't been recording, but what we have done, which actually did work quite well for us, which again was a sort of an unexpected turn. We started doing classes over Instagram. I mentioned earlier that my partner, or one of my partners, now lives over in Australia. The partner that I co-founded the train station with took a session the other day. So it was whatever it was, 5:15 in the afternoon his time. It was 8:15 in the morning, Saturday morning here. He did a class over Instagram, and we recorded that class so that people could do it again. And we had requests for that. Again, not knowing exactly what information we're going to get this week, one would argue that the horse has bolted and I'm just about to close the gate. We should have been recording everything that we did. but that's certainly something that I would look to do now, bearing in mind that there's half a chance that we might at least be able to get back into the gym. And when we do get back into the gym, we can record the classes that we would stream upstairs in our studio, just to give it a little bit more of a professional background as opposed to someone's kitchen cabinets, etc., behind you. So that's definitely something that I would be looking to do, and then build up a library of exercises.
Yeah. Does it concern you at all, the idea that, well, if you've got a library of content that I can pay for access to, is that going to prevent me or discourage me from actually attending live classes if I can do it on my schedule? Is there a way you split it or you restrict what's accessible in an archive form?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, what we're talking about today is what's happened over the last 4 or 5 weeks. But if you just step back a little bit further to the Green Goddess, to Mr. Motivator, to Jane Fonda, every Big Brother or Love Island are coming out and bringing out a fitness DVD. An element of online workout or recorded material has been around for years, and it's been the Beverly Callard fitness video that comes out in January, topping the charts. Davina McCall is always at the top of the sort of the DVD chart. So it's a format that has been around for a long time, and as I said earlier, lots of fitness professionals, they don't have a gym. They have a client base that's all over the world through a YouTube channel. So it's been around for a long time, and I think that the live content with somebody is always going to be preferred, and by live I mean both through a stream session,
but also I think because your model's about sharing use of a personal trainer within a class format, that you're still getting some social interaction element of it, which is as important as ever, I guess.
So that's the next point. So Zoom has done that, but no way to the extent that we have normally. A community aspect of people that don't necessarily know each other very well, but they know that they attend that class at 8:30 on a Tuesday with me, means that they see that face week after week after week. That's a huge
and suddenly they're
part.
seeing them in their sitting room.
Yeah, they're seeing them, but that's another thing that they've come back to us and said, "Oh, I'm so pleased you're doing this, and you're doing it in the way that you're doing it, because it's nice to have a check-in with people." So, typically speaking, what happens is that the class starts online, everyone comes in, says hello, registers, and then the trainer will mute the microphone so that it's their image that's predominant on the screen, and then at the end of the session, the trainer flicks the microphone off and mute button off, and everyone is just having a little 2 minutes of, "Oh, hi, how are you? Oh, is everything going okay?" And there's a little bit of a catch up. That's been enormously important to our membership, to still be seeing people, because obviously the hub of the gym that's pulled us together is where they would normally meet, but they may live 20 streets apart, so they're not seeing each other. So yeah, that live interaction is huge.
So there was one other point I wanted to make, which was that, are you considering that the inverse to all of this could apply, in that suddenly you're not restricted on a trainer's location when you're hiring someone? Do you think you'll, the other side of this, potentially consider whether you'd hire a trainer purely on a remote basis, or someone who has a YouTube channel, could be a guest trainer for you, or something like that? Do you see that there's this opportunity to make location less of a hindrance?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Not that we had explicitly thought about that before, whereas we had thought about streaming classes before. But I think that is an option, and we have already, in essence, done that with Jim doing a session from Australia. I mean, that was obviously relatively extreme and obviously related, because it's a partner in the gym that everybody knows. But yes, although I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Obviously, previously, where we were dealing with trainers coming to deliver sessions at the gym, you needed to live where you could get to us in time for whatever session you may be taking. So it was relatively location dependent. What's happened recently shows that that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. Me as a client, me as a trainer with clients in Manchester, in the Isle of Wight, in Henley, etc., my setup. I may deliver the session from the gym, or I may deliver it from my front room, or my office, what have you. You could argue that a trainer in Los Angeles could deliver a time difference dependent a session for us. You could have, we just started talking before we came on about what I've been up to recently, and I've certainly come across many trainers through my travels that I've enjoyed training with myself, and would be interested in touching base with, to see if it was a like you mentioned there, like a guest trainer appearance or a masterclass, and the fact that people could link in through mediums such as this that we're talking through, makes that now not only possible, because it's always been possible, but makes it much more accepted, and as an accepted medium for people to work. And it's not something we thought about massively, but it's certainly something that is possible, and that I wouldn't now brush aside as oh no, that may not work. I think it would.
I mean, do you see that there's any any part of the sector that would struggle more than others? I mean, people, the low cost gyms with lots of locations, do you think they're going to be the ones that find it the hardest to come back from this? Or is it the independents that are going to struggle most? I mean, or is it just industry wide that it could all be aligned?
That's a really good question. And I've thought about this in a couple of different ways. Obviously, optimistically for me, that it doesn't affect us too much, but we are in essence a gym, a building where people come to exercise, and I do think, and I'm sure that you've seen it, and I'm sure that everyone listening has seen it. People, because they've been allowed out to exercise, are probably doing more exercise than they have done before. Yeah, no, I think the point about people returning to gyms is very interesting, very varied, and potentially worrying. A couple of things that I'm sure you've noticed, that with people being allowed out, one of the reasons that they're allowed out is to exercise. I think that lots of people have exercised more on a daily basis than they did do before. I think that many more people are running that have not run before. Whether or not when lockdown closes, people go, oh, great, thank you, I can throw my running trainers away. I think probably not. I think there'll be a lot of people that think, well, I only really ran on a treadmill at that very cheap monthly fee, massive gym. I probably don't need a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week gym to go running, when I've actually liked going on my run routes around London or Sussex or Oxfordshire or wherever it is you live. I think that you will have seen the amount of exercise kit that has been purchased for. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And I would imagine that most people, and obviously not all, but I imagine that most people that use a gym have now got a piece of gym equipment. And
if they didn't miss the boat and are having to spend 150 quid on Amazon hiked prices for the barbells, or
of course, exactly that. We certainly, one of the first things we did as a gym was lent our kit out. So touch wood, and I hope it doesn't happen. We've not had any kind of trouble at the gym, but if there was any trouble and anyone got in, there's nothing to nick, because we've lent all our stuff out. We did that so that we could continue to train people in the way that we train them, but also so that they didn't have to go out and spend enormous amounts of money on online to purchase something that they may or may not keep. So we've lent out all of our stuff and have used that in the sessions, both classes and PT one-to-ones. With the rest of the population, I imagine that a piece of gym kit was purchased, and people now, having had 4 or 5 weeks where that's the only bit that they could use because they couldn't get to where they normally train, have got pretty au fait with many different exercises you can do with one dumbbell. So do they want to be paying a fee to use a facility where they only run, they only follow a program that's on the wall in the free weight section? I don't know. I'd argue that we're slightly different from that, in that you turn up at our gym and you don't know what you're going to do. And that's one of the huge perks of the train station, is that the session is designed by the trainer leading the session. It's always different. And yes, okay, there'll be various bits of kit that are used in obviously the same way, but the time that you're on the kit, the amount of meters or calories that you have to achieve on that, whether you're working on your own or with a partner, I mean, the ways that you can work are endless. And I think that the demographic that we have, a lot of people are relatively pressured in their positions at work and don't want to have to think about what they do when they get to the gym. An email comes through, the phone goes, or someone comes in their office, they're always having to deal with something to sort something out. It's the chunk of the day where they just turn up and they get told what to do, and they leave feeling better. It goes back to that relationship point that we were talking about earlier. Having that community, having that sense of belonging to a facility, and having that relationship with your trainer or your classmates, in essence, makes it very different from, okay, I'm going to follow this program on YouTube and I'm going to use my dumbbell and I'm going to get a good workout, but it's still me in my house on my own doing it, as opposed to mixing with a group of others. So in terms of a boutique, which is what we class ourselves at, versus your bog standard kind of Globo gym or budget gym where you're paying a low fee for 24/7 access, where I don't think there's necessarily that higher sense of community. I think that's the market that might suffer. I would hope that the friendships and the relationships that you have in the more boutique styles, they continue, and that people flood back to them because they want to be back in that environment.
Completely, and it's just anything that's less of a commodity. It's not just the equipment and the facility; it's the experience. Is hopefully what sells it. Which is great to hear, and please, and hope that you guys ride the wave as successfully as you hope to. James, thanks so much for the chat today. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Nice to speak to you. Cheers, Nick.
Thanks so much for joining. We'll see you again for the next episode of Exploring Digital with Purr.
Thanks for joining. Remember to subscribe and follow us, and to share today's insights with other businesses you know who want to stay relevant in a digital-first world.